but we'll probably, if you feel how heavy this thing is, I think I used bigger print than I normally did. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. But it's a long chapter anyway, okay? So if we get through the Beatitudes, which is like the first 10 or 15, we'll be doing good tonight. So we'll probably use this one, next week too. Yeah, because there's so much going on in it.
That's fine with me. I'll use plan tonight.
Oh, okay. We'll get her done then. Like I said, Brother Epperson taught 4 Sundays on this here just a few weeks ago, so we did pretty good. Matthew 5, chapter 5, is the Sermon on the Mount. Okay? Verse 1, and seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain, and when he was set, his disciples came unto him. This is after, last week he went through the temptation, the testing that Satan put him through, and he's kind of after this happened. And then the latter portion of that, he called James and John, called some of the disciples. After this portion, then, because of some of the things that had happened up until then, they started seeing some of the miracles that he had done. He hadn't really started his ministry until after he went through the temptation. Okay? Some of the other things, as I've said before, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John, they don't go through the very same years of Jesus' life. Matthew kind of jumps into his adulthood. Luke goes through more of the baby in a manger. Mark goes through some of the other portion. Luke has a little more about him in his earlier periods, and John talks about, of course, his first miracle that was recorded that we said was the first miracle was the changing water into wine. But after he started doing some of these things, it said, seeing the multitudes, the people started coming to him, wanting him, mainly because he was doing these miracles. They wanted to be healed. They wanted to have their maladies, whatever it was, taken care of. So, as for when this was in his life, we don't know exactly. It's early in his ministry, but not early enough to where he's already done a few miracles. So people started seeing this. So seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain, and when he was set, his disciples came unto him. We talk about he was healing down here the people. He kind of went up by himself into a mountain, and then his disciples followed after him. Now, whether the people followed him, they probably did. We most of the time consider this about the same time as the feeding of the 5,000, but that's not necessarily so. It could have been at a different time period. And we did see this where we was at, where we was in Israel. We saw where they think that he taught. It's called Mount Beatitude. That's where they call it now. So it says it's wrong to think that Jesus went up to a mountain to remove himself from the multitudes. Jesus gave this teaching mainly to his disciples because he's getting them ready to go out and teach also. But there were several of the multitude that followed him, and they heard these things too. This is not, he probably, it's probably like an overseer. This was his message. And when he hit every town, this is the message he's preached on. This is the ones he talked about. We don't know that exactly, but we know he used part of this in a lot of his messages, bits and pieces.
I've read some too, that a lot of times they would go up to a position like that because your voice carried. Mm-hmm. And the people, it's like a built-in PA system.
We were where we were at in Israel, you can see, and it was a mountain and went right down into the Galilee. Okay? 2 weeks ago, we went fishing with Farrell and Sherry and their grandkids. And I didn't want to fish that day. It was hot. So I was sitting up under the shade tree. They had nice park benches. So Claremore Lake is really nice. So we went over there, and I was just sitting up there with some of the younger kids that didn't want to fish. After 5 minutes, they pretty well fished out. But you could hear them, oh, we caught one. And that was across the lake. You could hear that person telling them that they caught. We looked up to see if it was our kids, and it wasn't as the ones across the lake. You can hear it. It just, it's just like in a valley, and you hear back and forth. So that's partly what it was.
You used to Greenleaf.
Uh-huh.
In the evening, you could go out on that deck after the kids, and you could hear fishermen down there on the lake.
Down on the lake, you could hear
And they
them.
wasn't screaming. They
were talking but they didn't want to scare the fish. Try to keep kind of quiet. But. So, yeah, this is one of the things that they said that at this particular time. Now, Jesus here, he started out. He waited till his disciples came to him to start teaching some of this. And in this particular one, it said, when he was set. Now, actually, they said that probably means most of the time the teacher or rabbi would sit in the synagogue whenever they come in. And we saw this in several places. The table where they rolled out the scroll to read from in the synagogue, it was about this high. Well, you ain't going to be reading from up here. You're going to be sitting down in front of it. And he was in the middle, of, it was probably as big as this area, probably not even as big as the whole church here. Probably about half the church. It was the size of that one synagogue that we was in. We was in several of them, but some of them were bigger, some of them were smaller. So he was probably sitting at that. What that means is, and when he was set down, it says when he was set in the King James, but some of the others say it was seated. When he was seated, he began to talk, and he wasn't just talking. He was expounding. He was loud. He was trying to tell, because there was more than his people there. So at this point, his disciples came to him, and it said, it says his disciples. Well, early in his ministry, it talks about 70. There were 70 with him, 70 disciples. So there could have been those 70, and it could have been some of the other followers. Some of the followers, whoever it was, whether it was disciples or not, we know the disciples were there, but there may have been others also. And then verse 2 is easy enough. It says, he opened his mouth and he taught them, saying. This just means, like I said, he talked strongly. I don't talk very loud. Darla gets on to me that. What'd you say? Because I hear myself and I think she hears me, but she don't.
It's a sign of old age.
Yeah, it is. I get quiet and she says, what? No, I'm just kidding. So it's when he opened his mouth, he was expounding unto them, talking unto them, and talking about what was going on. Now he's about to begin, and the routine that he's going through is going to be much similar to what we just went through in Exodus and Deuteronomy. Okay, or Numbers, sorry. He's going to talk about some of the very same things Moses talked about. But in the thousands of years between Moses and him, things have changed on that. What they said, that you've heard it say this, and this is in the latter portion of this, but he's trying to tell them, because the meaning of words have changed, and now he's trying to say some of these things and trying to tell them what this means, what it actually means. And I'm going to skip over to page 5. I think it is, page 5. Brother Epperson, verse 3.
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Okay. Now we know blessed is, in other words, you can render it happy. Happy are those, okay, who are poor in spirit. Now, what is poor in spirit?
Can't do nothing to save ourselves.
We are. It's not that we have a poor spirit. That's not what it means. It means the spirit we have is not our own. It's Christ living in us. We need God's spirit in us. Our spirit, our human spirit, is not going to lead us very far at all. Okay? Matthew 25 and 34, it goes about, this is at the end of Jesus' ministry. At the day of judgment, he tells them, "Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world." Jesus is telling them at the first, this blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God. Those that are looking, that understand they need something from God, they are going to get that, and that's going to be the kingdom of heaven. Now, one of the things that's interesting that I really didn't notice, you know how the Old Testament ends? Everybody knows about Malachi. Malachi 3, where it talks about the offerings, giving the offerings. If you rob a god, it's like robbing. If you don't pay your tithes or don't pay your offerings, it's like robbing God. The end of Old Testament, the last thing that's said is a curse. If you don't follow this, this is what happens. Jesus starts out his ministry blessed. It's not a curse, it's a promise. It's something good that's going to happen if you do this. It says, he notices in 6 there, it says, page 6, note also with delight that the blessing is in every case in the present tense. Blessed, it's not that you will be blessed, but you are blessed. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are, each one as we go through these. So that's what, if you're doing this, you will be happy. You will be, you're subjecting yourself to the Spirit. Okay? The poor in spirit, it recognizes that they have no spiritual assets. That's another way of saying it. In our own selves, we don't have any assets. They know that they are spiritually bankrupt. We might say that the ancient Greek had a word for the working poor and a word for the truly poor. Okay? Jesus used the word for the truly poor here. It indicates someone who must beg whatever they have or get. We have to, and that's what we do with Christ. We have to beg for his mercy for our souls. He gave it to us. All we have to do is accept it, but we have to ask him for it. It's nothing that we can do on ourselves. This beatitude is first because it's where we start with God. We have to start out in the right place. How does the commandment start out? There's only God. There's only one God. Worship him. So it's following that pattern that we see that's in the Old Testament. As we go through these, Jesus is hitting on some of the commandments, reinforcing them. As we go through in Matthew, it'll eventually come to it, and it says a little bit here. He not only comes to get rid of the law, he's not trying to get rid of it. He comes to fulfill the law. On page 7, it says, "For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Those who are poor in spirit, so poor that they must beg, are rewarded. They receive the kingdom of heaven," because poverty of spirit is an absolute prerequisite for receiving the kingdom of heaven. And as long as we harbor illustrations about our own spiritual resources, we will never receive from God what we absolutely need to be saved. We can't do anything on our own. That's what this is saying. You get caught up, a lot of people want to do the works. Well, you got to have works, because if you are saved, you will have works, because you'll be doing it. But the works is not going to get you there. Carson said, the kingdom of heaven is not given on the basis of a race, or earned merits, or your military zeal, or the prowess of the zealots, or the wealth of Zacchaeus. It is given to the poor, the despised, the publicans, the prostitutes, those who are so poor they know they can offer nothing and do not try. They cry for mercy, and they alone are heard. There's not too many people. You go through and you look all through the Gospels. Jesus doesn't go to too many wealthy people, does he? The ones he goes to are the poor in spirit, the ones that need help, the ones that can't help themselves. Okay? The lepers, the ones that are blind, the ones that are crippled, those things like that. We do see a Zacchaeus. You know, he comes up. He is a wealthy man. Matthew was a wealthy man. But it's not because of that. It's because he wants to include everybody. It's just so many times that wealth gets in people's way. The call to be poor in spirit is placed first for a reason. It puts the following commands into perspective. They cannot be fulfilled by one's own strength, but only a beggar's reliance on God's power. You want to read 4 for us, Iris? It's on page 8.
Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted.
Okay. It says the ancient Greek, where this was taken, was written in Greek, the grammar that it goes through means that this is an intense degree of mourning. Jesus did not speak of casual sorrows for our consequences of sin, but a deep grief before God over our fallen state. We see sometimes David and some of the other prophets, whenever they would find out that there was some sin in the camp or sin with them, what would they do? They usually rip their shirt, their clothes, throw ashes on their head, throw ashes on their face. They was showing, they're trying to outwardly show how they felt inside. They were deeply grieving over something. We've had, usually most people has had an experience like that, where you're deeply mourning something. Something's happened in your life, and it's just an intense period. That's what this type of mourning, those that are, and of course, blessed they that are mourned, for they shall be comforted, because where are they going to be comforted? It's through the Spirit. That's how they're going to be comforted. Here again it says the Greek word to mourn is the strongest word for mourning in the Greek language. It's the word which is used for mourning for the dead, for the passionate lament for one who was loved. The weeping is for the low and needy condition of both the individual and society, but with the awareness that they are low and needy because of sin, not because of something else that they've done, okay? They're mourning over that sin and what affected them. This mourning is the godly sorrow that produces repentance unto salvation, as Paul talks about in Corinthians, 2 Corinthians 7. It says, they shall be comforted. God allows this grief into our lives as a path and not as a destination. What happened to Jesus? Previous scripture. He fasted 40 days, and then he was tested. God allowed that to prove to Satan, if nothing else, what could be done. That this is my son, and he's going to do my wishes. Those who mourn can know something special of God, the fellowship of his sufferings, and a closeness to the man of sorrows, who was acquainted with grief. Okay, verse 5. Harold, you want to read that one? Down at the bottom of 8. Page 8. That's all right.
Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth.
I think I had a wider spacing on this too, because there's a lot of space in there. Blessed are the meek. What do we think of when we think of a meek person? Somebody that's quiet.
Not boisterous, not, really getting out and drawing attention to themselves.
That's right. It's what it means, here again, our word is different than the Greek word. It says here, it's almost impossible to translate the ancient Greek word praeus, which in our word would be meek, with just one English word. It's hard for us to understand some of the different languages. How, when people are talking and they know different languages, and they'll say, "What's the word? What's this word?" One of the cutest things that I remember when Lana first came over with Jerry on there, she goes, "Oh, I'm just so amazed at all these skyscrachers. They're just everywhere." And she meant skyscrapers, Well, okay, I get it. She didn't know the word, but it's one of those things. It's learning process of it. We don't know the Greek words a lot of times. Here, this Greek word, it says it has the idea, this praeus, has the idea of proper balance between anger and indifference. That's a lot. A meek person, we don't think them as angry, do we? We don't think them are indifferent. Now, sometimes we think of meek people, they're not, they're just a pushover. It says this is a powerful personality, properly controlled, and of humility. That's what a meek person is. It's somebody that's very passionate about what they are or what they're doing, but yet, as you said, you're not blusterous. You're not seeking for yourself. You're trying to work for God, or trying to do. That's the word. What it was trying to mean in there.
I once read, and they said it's like an iron fist and a velvet glove.
Mm-hmm.
Able to really strength, powerful, but at the same time able to reach.
That's right. It says the vocabulary was not passive or easily pushed around. The meek person. The main idea behind the word was strength under control. Okay, we see people that they want to act like they're strong, but they get all out of sorts. They just start shouting and jumping up and down, and they think, that's going to accomplish something. But it's like strength under control, like a strong stallion that was trained to do the job instead of running wild. So it's the attitude is there, the strength is there, but yet it's under control. It can be held back. It says, in general, the Greeks considered meekness a vice because they failed to distinguish it from servility. To be meek towards others implies freedom from malice and a vengeful spirit. A lot of people, they say, within 10 to 30 seconds, when you meet a new person, you size them up pretty quick. Whether I'm going to like you or I'm not like you or whatever. And that's what, when I meet somebody, I can tell right away, I don't like this. And it's not mean I don't want to push them off, but it's one of those things that, okay, that's not my style. I'm not going to say I'm not going to be friends with them or try to be, I'm not going to be mad at them or anything, but I don't like that boisterous, attitude, sounding, loud and all this stuff. It's just not the way I was brought up. It's not the way that a lot of people, So It says the meek can be angry. Who can be angry but restrain their wrath in obedience to the will of God, and will not be angry unless they can be angry and not sin, nor will be easily provoked by others. We see this in Jesus when he goes about and his anger is pointed towards the people in the temple that's selling stuff. He's making it a den of thieves. He's making it for them. So he's throwing them out. Yeah, he turns their tables over and everything, and people's like, man, this is a wild man. What's he doing? Well, he's doing something that goes so far. I'll go so far and I won't go anymore. But that's not, Jesus went ahead. He got mad, and he wasn't angry at them for sinning, but they're doing something in his Father's house that they shouldn't be doing. Okay? Now they could do that, but they could do it elsewhere. Some people I know are not going to be able to buy sacrifices and all that, but they don't need to be doing it right there. It says the first two Beatitudes are mostly inward, okay, in ourselves. The third one deals with how one relates to his fellow man. The first two were mainly negative. This one is positive. To be meek means to show willingness to submit and work under proper authority. It also shows a willingness to disregard one's own rights and privileges. Have you ever started, when you was working, have you ever worked for somebody and you're just like, that man's an idiot. I mean, he doesn't have a clue as to what's going on. But you had to still work under him. You wonder, how in the world did that person get to where they were? And here again, I go back to most of the time it's being a big, boisterous, blowhard type of a person. That's what I see. But anyway, we'll go on. There's 3 or 4 more pages of meekness. You can read about that, but we're going to press on to verse 6. It's in page 11, top of the page 11. Do you want to read, Janet?
Yeah.
Okay, blessed. 6.
Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled.
Okay. Happy are those that are hungry. Is that what it says?
No.
I'm hungry all the time. No.
That are wanting to be righteous.
That's right. They're thirsting after righteousness. Their hunger. What did Jesus say? I have bread that you haven't seen. I'm doing my Father's business. I've had meat that you don't know. This is what he means here. He's hungering. He's telling us the people, if you hunger after this, if you truly have a feeling for this, after righteousness, then you shall be filled. Those things, if you're looking for something, truly looking, there's a lot of people hungry, but they're looking for a handout. Give it to me. Give it to me. Give me something. But that's not what he's saying. Yeah, I want to be filled, but that's not. It's the people that's looking. You start to say something.
Both of these are 2 of the most important urges, I mean, we have to have them to live.
Right, right.
And to me, it gets where we realize, hey man, I've got to have him. I've got to have him.
We see in this life, we see a lot of different attitudes. People hunger after many things: power, authority, success, comfort, happiness, all these things. But how many actually are looking for righteousness? Looking to see what's right. A lot of people, in our society today, it's the situational ethics that they're not looking for this at all. They're not looking for whatever is right. They're looking for whatever that gets them by, or whatever feels good, or whatever like that. Whatever gets it off their back, off their plate, so they don't have to deal with it.
But the righteousness part, this is where that comes from.
It
right
is.
Here, this word.
It is.
And they won't get into this word, and they won't take it as the truth.
A lot of people that, especially today, it started out where back when they didn't have that many texts, they had to hear from the scribes, read it, or the rabbis read from it, because they didn't have that many. That's why they learned it orally. They memorized it. way back when. And then we got the printing press, all this started up. Everybody had a availability of a Bible and listened to it and could read. And now it's gone almost the other way, swung all the way back to where, yeah, I got a Bible, but I don't ever open it. I don't read it.
And then they want to pick and choose which parts they believe
Well,
and which parts they don't.
They don't even know what's in the Bible. When somebody says something that, oh yeah, that sounds good, that must be in the Bible somewhere. And the pastor may have said it, but it's a quote from Ronald Reagan or something. Who knows what it is? And they don't know it's in the Word.
I remember when I went down to school, college, first year, first semester. I got an education in a way because being raised in a church home, okay. I didn't always live a Christian, okay, and I got down there and I hear these guys say, well, I believe in God, but I don't believe in the Bible.
Yeah.
And, and then you get them and say, well, I believe that it's okay, but it's not truly inspired by God.
Right.
And,
Right.
You can't take half of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's either all inspired or it's not inspired.
Right. And
Well,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I feel like we should always continue to have that hunger. We're gonna get fed.
Sure.
God's gonna open more of the Word up to us and give us a better understanding, and we should be diligently looking and hungering to get closer to God and to understand His Word even more.
Mm-hmm.
And
You can tell too when somebody is doing that. It shows.
Yeah. That, hopefully, as we go along through our whole Christian life, we continue to grow.
yes,
Most of the time, we have to start from somewhere. So we start from our parents or whoever, grandparents or whatever. And we learn from them. But then as we grow on our own, we'll start learning for ourselves. And that's where a lot of people have left it out. They're relying on somebody else to teach them. And they don't know themselves. I mean,
It's a lazy Christian.
I can remember.
I'm telling you, people are so lazy now on their Christianity.
It is.
It's terrible.
Well, kind of like Brother Epson said, they believe that, yeah, you can be saved, but they don't believe the rest of it. Well, why can't you believe the rest of it? I mean, that's just, you got to take the whole thing.
They want to be spoon-fed, so to speak, and they want to just, go to church and listen to a message, but they don't ever want to open this up outside of, the
Right.
church.
Well, they hear it in here, and once you leave the church, it's gone. I mean, to me, that's what it seems like, that people, you have to, when you're reading it, it has to continue. You have to continue to grow throughout your life. You may think about something one way, and then you find out, you read some more stuff, and you find out more about it, and you're like, well, I may have been thinking about that wrong. Maybe it is this way.
It sheds more light.
It does. It
That's
goes
that
back.
hunger and thirst that, it's talking about.
A lot of these things that we've studied here recently, just this about how the Beatitudes correlate back to the commandments. I'm like, well, yeah, I could kind of see that now. That I didn't really think about it, but yeah, I can see that it's doing that. It's doing some, and some of these other things that we've talked about before that it's done that. So,
The internal and the external.
right, it starts working together to help us. Verse 7. I'll read that. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. When this beatitude addresses those who will show mercy, it speaks to those who already have received mercy. It is mercy to be emptied of your pride and brought to poverty of spirit. It is mercy to be brought to mourning over your spiritual condition. It is mercy to receive the grace of meekness and become gentle. It is the mercy to be made hungry and thirsty after righteousness. Therefore, this is one who is expected to show mercy, is one who has already received it. That's one of the parables that Jesus had. The one guy that owed the king thousands of talents, and he couldn't pay him back. And the king, okay, I'll wipe out your debt. But then he had somebody that owed him, 1,000th of that or whatever it was, a small portion, and he wouldn't show him any mercy at all. He wasn't there. He didn't have the mercy. The king gave him mercy, and he should have looked upon it now, but it didn't. The merciful one will show it to those who are weaker and poorer. The merciful one will always look for those who weep and mourn. And the merciful one will be forgiving to others and always looking to restore broken relationships. The merciful one will be merciful to the character of people and choose to think the best of them whenever possible. Sometimes that's hard because you're like, oh, they're never going to get up. You know, they're too set in their ways. But that's not. We have to think that, no, God was merciful to us. We have to be merciful to them. We have less patience. I saw a good little video today on YouTube, I think it was, or maybe Facebook, whatever. But it's just a little skit. Didn't have any words. And it just had a little sayings right over the guy's head. Had three people. Doorway coming out. Guy was coming out of the doorway. A person over here and a person over here. Well, this person was labeled Jesus, and this guy was the Christian, and this guy was the adversary. Okay? This guy gets ready to start walking out, and he's walking like this, and Jesus goes, "No, no, stop." He goes, "What? What? Nope, just stop." So the guy stopped. He didn't say anything. He just stopped. Well, the adversary's over here with like a ball bat, getting ready to whack that guy as he walks out of it, and he goes, "No, wait, just wait." The guy sits down, sits around, looking around, and it goes on for a couple minutes. And finally, the devil gives up and walks away. And he goes, "Okay, come on." And we just don't know what's going on. We have to have that, patience. And the
prophet Baal, wasn't it when Baal?
Oh yeah. The prophet, when he didn't know anything until that donkey told him, "Hey, don't you see that guy over there that's about to walk your head off?" So that's one of the things we have to have mercy ourselves. We have to understand that we receive mercy and we're to give that mercy out. If we have that mercy, then we're going to be able to allow other people to see it. We're just not patient with people. That's sometimes hard because I told you 1,000 times, what's about this? Haven't you learned yet? But we have to learn that.
But these go against the flesh.
It does. It does very much. It's hard.
The old saying, "Go get to me once, shame on
Yeah.
you. Get to me twice, shame on me." But again, and when our kids are growing up, if they're getting at school or something, we teach them, well, don't put a,
Yeah.
It's a fine line here. These things get down where we live every day.
Heard a guy talking the other day about it. He's talking about something about getting into a fight. He said, "Well, my daddy taught me one thing: don't get into a fight. You can't win." He said, "That's the only thing." He said, "If he's bigger than you or whatever, you find some kind of equalizing factor. You grab a rock or you grab a 2x4 or something, and if you're going to fight, you're going to win." Well, that's not quite what we're talking about here, but that's what we have to have, that ability in ourselves to have that mercy, to look at, we're going to continue no matter what they do for us. That's just teaching Sunday, sometimes we're going to be rebuked. And the Spirit says, or the Word says, we're going to be rebuked a lot in the last times. Verse 8, Brother Epperson.
Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God.
The pure in heart. The phrase pure in heart has the idea of straightness, honesty, and clarity. And I think that's pretty much the way we feel like, it is today. It says there can be two ideas connected to this. One is an inner moral purity as opposed to the image of purity or ceremonial purity. Now the Jews, they were ceremonial pure. Before they'd go in, they had those baths that they take, the mikvahs. They'd have it so one side, they'd walk down one side of the stairway, go into the water, and then come up another side because they didn't want to come up on the side that they just had sin in, But they still, if they didn't give up what they were talking about, they were still dirty. They were still sinning. Even though you actually went into the water and came out a different way, that's just getting around giving up that sin. I mean, it's it's not doing anything for you. It's getting you wet.
Well, I think that's why it says in heart.
In the heart, that's
in
right.
Heart.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can do all kinds of things on the outside to try to seem pure and all that, like you said, the priests and things. But it's when you've got it inside, in that heart, that matters.
I probably met only in my life, I think, a couple of people that, you meet a lot of people that you come up, well, how you doing, honey? Or something like that. And then, just pour on the sweetness, and okay, how long is this going to last? And it doesn't last very long usually. But there's been a couple of people in my life, I'm like, are they really like, and they were all the time. They were just so sweet. And so I just like, man, what juice are you drinking? I want some of that, because I just, sometimes it's just, but it's the pure heart. They're always looking on the right side. They're always looking on the good side. They're always looking, nothing's, if it goes wrong, it's okay. It'll be all right. And that's hard to do a lot of times for us. Here again, we're in the flesh. We can't see that. We want to act a lot of times when something comes up on us.
I think too, that also goes back to integrity and, the character and things that pure in heart, that says a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That covers a lot of ground.
Yep. This was kind of, Spurgeon brought this up. It says, one day at a hotel dinner table, I was talking with a brother, a minister, about certain spiritual things when a gentleman who sat opposite to us and had a serviette tucked under his chin and a face that indicated his fondness for wine made this remark: I have been in this world for 60 years and have never yet been conscious of anything spiritual. We did not say what we thought, but we thought it was very likely that what he had said was perfectly true. And there was a great many more people in the world who might say the same as he did, but that only proved that he was not conscious of anything spiritual. Not that others were not conscious of it. We have to be careful about that. I mean, we a lot of times we're not that pure in heart. We have to be, we have to kind of stop ourselves a lot of times and say, oh, can't say that. Something comes up and you're thinking it or whatever. It's like, nope, that's not right. I can't do that. That's not what they would want.
That last says ultimately this in the relationship with God must become our greatest motivator.
Right.
Greater than the fear of getting caught or the fear of consequences.
Sometimes
that's let God down.
That's right. That last portion, fear of consequences, gets us. Well, what's going to happen if I bring this up? Oh, they're going to bring something else up and talk and keep on, go on. I need to go. That's just what it is sometimes. But we need to be that way. We need to be that pure in heart. Verse 9. Where are we at, Iris?
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God.
Okay. Now, what do you think a peacemaker is? Somebody that's peaceful all the time? Not really. It says what this does not describe those who live in peace, but those who actually bring about peace. Overcoming evil with good. One way we accomplish this is through spreading the gospel, because God has entrusted us with the ministry of reconciliation. 2 Corinthians 5:18. In evangelism we make peace between man and God, whom they have rejected and offended. That's a primary thing that I think today that we have to do, because in this world, there's a lot of hate going on. And the only way you can win somebody is to love them. And sometimes it's hard to love somebody that's hating you. But you just have to keep on and keep on and keep on. And that's part of it, that you are bringing them closer together to God by showing them how God will help you through these things. And sometimes we get a little overboard on things. Yeah, we know that, you know, there's a lot of wrong in this world, but ultimately, we're trying to win the world. That's the case. We don't want to beat them over the head with, this is the way it's going to be, or you're not going to make it. Yeah, that's true. Okay? But we can bring about and show them how we are to live. And that's part of it. It's understanding.
One of the things that is hard, this is me, okay? But when there in John, when it said, and he became the Word, he became flesh, the Word, okay, in flesh. That I'm thinking, Lord, I know I'm not Jesus, I'm not saying that, but that's what I want to be. You know, all these things, man, they're difficult.
Right.
But Jesus was the Word made flesh.
Right.
In other words, all of his, it says he was, they persecuted him, he didn't persecute back. And you know, wow. I mean, what a difference. You know, it's like a lot of times people in our society now, you know, like the Ten Commandments on the wall, people want to take them down and stuff. And beside it says, just thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal.
Right.
And now we got, you know, murders every time we turn around. It's because there's no Word made flesh.
Right.
Nobody, we got politicians. I was thinking, wouldn't it be wonderful to have somebody running for president that was this kind of person? You know, the peacemaker,
right.
And all of this kind of stuff.
It would be very nice. And it's kind of, I think, ironic. It says, for they shall be called the sons of God, the peacemakers. Well, who were the sons of thunder? They wasn't two peacemakers. They was wanting to bring heaven down upon those, James and John. They were ready to bring it down. But even then, he was trying to show us, you know, that we have to have that peace, bring peace to them.
And you can see too today how Satan tries to do the very opposite
Oh, yeah.
of this.
Yeah.
You know, instead of peace, he tries to rob people up.
He wants to disrupt everything. He wants to tear it up. He's a cheater. He tries to kill. You know,
So many angry
everything. That's right. That's all that he's got to do. 10 through 12. Either one, whoever, Harold, if you'll read it, or Jen.
Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you.
Oh, now time out. I don't want any of that. I don't want no persecution. That got to stop there. That's not
real person.
That's right. That's too much. These blessed ones are persecuted for righteousness' sake. A lot of people are persecuted today, but it's not for righteousness. It says they're persecuted for their own stupidity or fantasies. That's about right. Peter recognized that suffering might come to some Christians for reasons other than their faithfulness to Jesus, and this is not what Jesus addressed here. that was in 1 Peter, he talks about that. The character traits described in the Beatitudes are not valued by our modern culture. That's for sure. We've talked about that already. We don't see any awards given to the most pure in heart or the most poor in spirit. Our culture doesn't think of these character traits at all. They do describe the character of citizens of heaven. We don't. This is award season. Every channel, every weekend it's another set of awards. It seems like from March till now, June, the Tony Awards is next. I've seen that half a dozen times this week already. I'm like, I don't care. But that's all it is. They're celebrating their own selves. They're not celebrating. That's right. They want an award for something. And it goes back to everybody wins, almost. Of course, not every one of them, so they have to try it again next year. But that's not what it's about. It's not about winning anything. It's about doing that all the time. Being what you are all the time. As a Christian, we have to be a Christian 24 hours a day. So, tells us that they're blessed are you when you revile and are persecuted and say all kinds of evil things against you falsely. And then adds the last portion, for my sake. That's where it goes back to it has to be for him. Yeah, people are going to persecute us or yell at us, things like that. I mean, just going down the street, if you don't move out of the way very fast in your car, they're honking at you and waving at you with a real friendly wave, and, all these things. And it's like, what did I do? I didn't do nothing. And it's like, come on, that's the attitude. Everybody's angry, it seems like today. No matter what you do, everybody seems to be angry. And I don't know where that comes from. I mean, it comes from Satan, I know that, but I don't know why. It seems like several years ago in Oklahoma, everybody, when we was out in western Oklahoma, and you driving down the road, everybody's going, waving. That's the wave that you do. Just one finger up and not. Boy, just everybody was, because everybody knew that you're only out there because you live there, right? Ain't no false people out there because you're way out in the panhandle. But it seems like now there is no, everybody's rude. Everybody always seems to not want to wait in a line. They want to jump in front of you, whether it's with a car or in a shopping cart or what. It's just, I want to get out of here. It's just, we've lost all, being nice to people, each other. Seems like civility, yeah. We just had lost that.
Well, I think about the people that some of them right now even are getting persecuted because they stand up for their Christian beliefs.
Right.
That they won't make a cake for a certain type of person or couple or whatever. That they just get persecuted, by the society and the world and the laws and the things that, And then there are those that, I get that Voice of the Martyrs from out of Bartlesville. Mm-hmm. And you read through that, and goodness gracious, there's so many that lose their lives over there in places that are, trying to win souls, and they're getting killed.
Anywhere else, basically outside the U.S., and it's starting to be in the U.S. now even, they're starting to bring charges against you and things that, all these people. But yeah, they'll maybe warn you, or they may not even warn you, and they just, take you out and kill you, set you on fire.
Places like Australia, New Zealand, all the, part of the Western Hemisphere that's always been predominantly religious. Okay, nowadays, this woke stuff and all that kind of stuff. And, they talk about hate. How Christians, but then they talk with hate and they call you all kinds of names. But if you just stay, and again, it's not going to get any better.
No.
And our relationship, man, it's going to be harder and harder to live with.
It is.
That's why we got to draw close to God.
That's right.
We do. Well, we're gonna go ahead and cut it off. It's almost an hour and we just got through the Beatitudes. So we'll start up at 13 and see if we can make it through the next time with the rest of it. Appreciate everybody coming out.